Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Valley Bible Studies podcast. If you don't remember me, which I understand, I'm KT, and alongside me we have Mr. Luke Tatum.
Hello.
And we're excited to get back to another episode. We're finally finished with the fruit of the Spirit.
I will say,
it's like series, you know?
It felt like it took a lot longer, and this is partially because we didn't record for like 2 months, but...
They don't know. Actually, they do know that.
Yeah, they do know that.
Yeah.
It felt like it took a lot longer going through the written studies on those because, like, there are 9 of them.
Right.
So each one of them took a minute. But now we're on to
we did it.
What is going to be the last series of this year, which is kind of wild to say.
Really?
Like October starts when we're recording this. October is a couple days away. It will be October when this is out.
Yeah, Wednesday's the 1st.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of wild.
Like, and obviously people know this and people have said it, but you don't really know it until you're that much older.
Yeah.
But, like, the year goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
like when you're a kid,
it's the cliche of, like, and you see this on Facebook and stuff, but, like, the days are long, the years are short.
Yeah.
100% true.
Yeah. Especially as a teacher.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you work with kids as well, so I mean, you get it.
Yeah, like when I got here, Rylan was 8. Rylan's 13. I don't like it. That's like it's wild to consider that. Like some of the kids that were in, not quite middle school, but like freshmen when I got here for the first time are in college.
Like I remember when Sophia and Andrew and all them, they were like, no, I'm talking like little.
Yeah, and both the ones you just said are like adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Rylan was our flower girl, and that was 7 years ago.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, this series that we're starting today is going to be the end of 2025, which is kind of wild to say out loud, but here we are.
2026
is fast approaching. And we do have a plan for season 3.
Season 3.
What? I don't get why that's funny.
It's not funny. It's just I don't.
You chuckle every time I say season whatever.
Because I'm not expecting it.
But I say it every time.
Not every time.
I'm predictable.
Yeah.
You can't argue with that.
Well, like Ben says. Hey, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Like Ben says, if it's funny once,
it's funny every time.
It's funny every time.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Kind of like a story.
Right.
Like my family's notorious for
telling the same stories.
If there's a story, it's gonna be said.
Right.
So if a story's good once,
it's good every time.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I assume when I tell the youth group the same story. Is that it's still funny.
I will say that, like in the classroom, like at school, and I start a story, and they're like, "Oh, you already told us this one," and I'm like, "Good.
You can listen again."
Yeah. Like, I'm going to tell it again.
Like in your case, you can be like, "You're here for 8 hours."
Yeah.
You can hear it again.
I have tissues. You can cry about it.
Right.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorite things to do. When a kid starts complaining, I just walk away and I go grab the tissue box and I walk back to them and I just like start handing it to them and they look confused. They're very perplexed and they're like, "What's this for?" I'm like, "Well, if you're going to cry about it," and they're just like, "Oh."
I've handed a couple of the kids my phone before and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You can call 911 yourself or I can do it."
Goodness.
Anyway.
I will say my class's favorite. I got one more. My class's favorite thing that I've said recently is it's all poops and giggles until somebody giggles and poops. They don't see that one coming.
That is true.
They don't see that one coming, and they just...
That is accurate.
They thought that one was funny.
So the church.
Okay. Wow.
That's what the last series is going to be. The next 6 episodes, 5 or 6 episodes, however many there are left, are going to be
2 each
6. Yeah, are going to be a study of what the church is, what the church does, how the church is structured, the works of the church, to use a biblical term.
Who does what?
Right.
Why they do it.
Right.
Things
and
like
so today, the subject, as you know because you've clicked on the episode and know the title, but today we're talking about the eldership, which arguably in terms of the structure of the church is the most important part.
Yeah,
I would say is the most important part.
Well, it's almost tiered, I guess.
Right.
And they're the ones on this earth. They're the ones at the top because they represent everything that we do and take care of everybody there.
Right. Okay, so that's point one is why elderships? Like, why does the church today function with elderships as its leaders and organizers, right? And so the way that you answer that based on the New Testament is who has the authority? Like, who, if somebody's going to lead the church today, right? Obviously, we know that the one eternal leader of the church is Jesus Christ.
Right.
He says, upon this rock I will build my church. That's personal possessive. It is his. He has never given it up. He died for it, and nobody's ever going to take it away from him. He says in John chapter 10, no one's able to snatch my sheep out of the Father's hand. So it is his church. But he's not walking around, right? Like, Jesus is not
physically here. Right.
So who is physically here running the day-to-day operations of the church in like representing him? So when Jesus gives the Great Commission, he says, Matthew 28, starting in verse 18, all authority has been given in me in heaven and on earth. So again, it's Jesus' church. He has all authority over it. He looks at his apostles and says, you 11 guys at that point.
We're in Virginia. Say y'all.
Whatever. You 11 guys at this point, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So at that point, he said, I have all authority. I'm delegating some of that authority to you guys. Use guys.
Whoa. Oh, man. Podcast over.
And you 11, I'm delegating the authority to start the church. That's what he's already said. Like, back in Matthew 16, he's told Peter, I'm going to give y'all the keys to the kingdom of heaven.
Now, and that's not to be confused with the keys. I think we've talked about this before, but it's very important to me that we specify what the keys are. If I were to give you, Luke, the keys to success,
yeah,
what does that mean? What are the keys?
Like the ways that you get there.
Yeah, the opportunities,
right,
the tools, everything you need to be successful.
Right.
Right? Jesus, at that point, gave them the keys to heaven.
Right.
The opportunities, the tools.
He's not giving them the kingdom.
Right.
He's giving them the way to get to the kingdom.
And there's a misconception.
It's the same. Like, if I give you a key to my house, like I have a spare key and I give it to you, I'm not giving you my house.
I actually have a key to your house.
I know. I'm not giving you my house. I'm giving you a way to get into my house.
Right. And so the misconception is that Jesus gave Peter the key, meaning people had to go through Peter to get to heaven, which then classified him as the first pope.
Right. But what's actually happening is he's saying, Peter, you're going to be the one to open the door. Because that's what a key does, right? It allows for a door to be open. And so it's Peter.
But it's based off the things that you and everybody else here that I'm talking to, the other apostles that were there, based off of what you say, things that I, Jesus, have told you.
Right. And so Peter is the one who leads the apostles to preach the first sermon on Pentecost that opens the door into the church. All of that to say, the apostles are the ones that Jesus delegates his authority to. Okay, so the problem with that in the 21st century is that there are no apostles. And we know that because in Acts chapter 1, Peter actually says one of the requirements to be an apostle is you had to be a disciple of Jesus from his baptism to his resurrection. And so there's a specific period of time.
That was a really long time ago.
A really, really long time ago. Nobody's walking around that's 2,000 years old.
Right.
Right? So we know that we don't have apostles today. So who's in charge of the church? Jesus is in charge of the church. But like, who is the day-to-day operations manager of the church? Right? Jesus is not physically here.
Who handles delegation of how the church operates?
Right. Okay, so over the course of the book of Acts, there's only one group that we see the apostles,
Mm-hmm.
who are the ones with the delegated authority from Jesus, there's only one group of people that we see them delegate to. Because as they go through the Roman Empire and they're setting up congregations of the church in different places, what they're doing is they're establishing elderships.
Right.
And in those elderships, they delegate the authority. Here is the means by which you guide and organize the church as the day-to-day operations managers of this congregation. Now, it's important to say this congregation. It's congregational authority, right? It's not one...
Like elders aren't transferable.
Right. So like, the West Side Eldership is not making decisions for the Radford congregation.
And
or
vice
the
versa.
Lake
Right.
Drive congregation.
Yeah.
And vice versa. And it's not like there's no elder swap program, right? Like you the elders of your congregation are the elders of your congregation, period. That's important for two reasons. Number one, there is no central authority besides Christ, right?
Yeah.
Like he is the central authority. The Bible is the central authority. Every eldership operates within the confines of that. And number two, words are hard.
You're telling me.
I actually think I just made 2 points into one. Like, I think my first point was, like, one congregation is not in charge of another, and then my second point was they all operate within Scripture. Like, this congregation can't decide, like, we're gonna change the plan of salvation. Like, that's not how it works.
Well, then they no longer become the Church of Christ.
Well, exactly. And, like,
because people did do that.
That's true. But if you follow the chain of authority, which is what they're, like, you're operating as delegated authority, not as final authority. Because Jesus is the final authority.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not. Yeah, it's not erected authority to where they're like, "Hey, we're now the ones in charge. We're going to make this call."
Right.
It's we're not in charge.
Here's the blueprint.
We are here to represent.
Right. It's the difference between a manager and a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. To where, like, because elders are. They're the ones that shepherd. They're the ones that lead. They guide. They're not spiritual decision makers.
Right.
They're not the ones calling the shots. The shots have already been called. They're just the ones that are pointing us in the right direction so that we can follow those decisions that have already been made.
Right. So the elders are not like, they're not saying, this is what the plan of salvation is, or this is how worship looks. They're deciding on
how to best grow
how
our
to
congregation.
best do that.
Yeah,
like how to best share the gospel, how to best worship in the most effective way, how to best serve other people in the most effective way. Those are the kinds of decisions that the elders are making, not whether we should or should not do those things.
Well, and you said it earlier, it's on a congregational level, and so any decisions that they make are for the congregation, not for the Lord's church.
Like, just because we at Westside worship in this structure does not mean that that's binding on any other congregation. Now, what the Bible says about worship, like the acts of worship and what it actually entails, see our series earlier this year, that's done. Like, that decision has been made.
The order that we do it might vary.
Right. How do you accomplish that the most effectively?
Yeah. And that's one of those, and you can call it nitpicky or whatever, but each congregation is going to do it their own way as long as they are doing it correctly.
Right.
You can do it however you want, but you have to have the certain things that are picked out for you. Again, those decisions were already made.
You have to have the authority.
Right.
We don't have the authority to say, this is what worship entails.
Right.
The eldership has the authority to say, okay, these are the things that worship entails. How are we going to go about doing those?
Yeah, and we'll talk about this on a different episode, I think. But when it comes to, like, instruments and stuff, like, we don't get to choose that because that wasn't in the paperwork.
Right.
That wasn't. That was
not left up for the elderships to decide.
Right. And the example that I always use is, like, say that you and I, Luke, you and I are kids, and you come over to the house, and you're gonna stay the night or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, Luke, you want some candy? And your answer is gonna be
yeah.
Right. And I'm like, okay, the candy drawer is over here, and we open up the candy drawer, and there's like a ton of candy bars.
Naturally.
Right. And in your thought of, hey, if I ask you, hey, let's get some candy, what are my parents going to be like, in terms of how much candy we can get?
Was that a question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the question?
Like, how much candy do you think my parents would be okay with us having?
Like a candy bar?
Right. But let's say I take all of the candy bars.
That's a lot of candy bars.
Right. And so we go back into the living room or wherever, and we eat all the candy bars.
Yeah.
And you ask me, hey, did your mom say that we could do this? And I look at you and I go, she didn't say we couldn't. Do you think my mom's going to be upset
Probably.
that we ate all the candy bars?
Probably so.
She didn't say we couldn't.
Yeah.
To me, that's the kind of perspective I have with instruments.
Sure.
To where a lot of people are like, well, God didn't say in the Bible that there's no like explicit thing saying that we can't.
Right.
But he also didn't give the authority to.
Right. And there's also so this is a good example of how an eldership's authority works, right? So 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, there's a lengthy description of how first century church worship looked. And it centers around everybody having a role, everybody participating, and everybody using the gifts that they have in order to glorify God as a group. Now, we don't have a lot of the same spiritual gifts that the first century church did because those gifts have ended at the end of the apostolic age, and that's talked about in chapter 13. But the principle of this is something for everybody to participate in and something for everybody to use the gift that they do have in order to glorify God. So, that principle is there. How do we accomplish doing that? That's an eldership thing. Because the elders, as the ones who are guiding and having relationships with the rest of the congregation, they're hopefully going to know what everybody's gift is. Like, they're going to know.
Well, that's that relationship portion of being an elder.
Exactly. Like, they're going to know, here is our skill set as a congregation. Here is what we can do. And in terms of worship, in terms of evangelism, in terms of benevolence, there are parameters, but within those parameters, how does our skill set get used to the maximum capacity?
Yeah. And a big part of that is them understanding what, like, one, them understanding what their role is, but two, understanding what, the Bible is saying about how they are to conduct themselves as elders within their congregation, what they're supposed to be doing, because, again, they're not the ones calling the shots.
Right.
In terms of what the Bible says.
Right.
And there are so many examples throughout history of people saying, well, yeah, the Bible has all the authority, but I think it's like this, right? And that's how denominations are formed. You look back at during like the Reformation with Martin Luther. I was going to say this to you earlier, but you were being a jerk and you didn't want me to hear. You didn't want to hear it.
Worst.
And Martin Luther, one of his key points to go away from the Catholic Church was that the Pope doesn't have all the authority; the Bible does.
Yep.
But then he contradicts himself and he says, well, because what I think is that all you have to have as, to get into heaven is faith.
Right.
And so he contradicts himself saying, the Bible has all the authority, but you only have to have faith.
That's not a mutually exclusive thing. Like, just because you're rejecting one tradition does not automatically mean that your tradition is correct.
Right. And so, like, when he writes the 95 Theses in Wittenberg, Germany, that was 1517.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Within those 95 complaints that he has, that's one of them. And so I always, like, when I talk to my history classes about it, I'm always like, he contradicts himself.
Yeah.
And so making them aware of that, I think is pretty cool, but it's the authority that you think you have that was never granted to you. Well,
and so that's one of the burdens and responsibilities of authority is using that authority correctly. So one of the things that you can say, this is sort of a blanket statement that covers this episode and the next two, I would say. But it's James chapter 3 and verse 1 where James says, "Brethren, do not let many of you become teachers, knowing that you will receive a stricter judgment." So what he's not saying is stop teaching other people the gospel. Obviously, he's not saying that because Jesus said you are all to be involved in preaching the gospel to other people. What he is saying is before you sign up to be a leader in the church and somebody who is responsible for the spiritual training of other people, recognize the fact that comes with the authority that is granted in that situation comes with the responsibility to use that authority in a correct way. Like, don't
abuse your power.
Right. Don't abuse your power. Don't use your power to say, this is what I think. Use your power to say, this is what the Bible says. Here's how we're going to accomplish what the Bible says.
Yeah. And there are a lot of instances where having an opinion is fine, but when you start enforcing that opinion as fact, that's when it becomes very problematic.
Especially when you have a position of influence.
Yeah. And like you and I have a position of influence, not necessarily in a full-on leadership role, but just because we
have a podcast for one thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, but when you have so much confidence in an opinion that you treat it as fact,
that's dicey.
Confidence without evidence is delusion.
Yes.
And so when you start having so much confidence in the things that you believe in that don't really have evidence, that's when problems get created.
Right.
And that's why there are so many different types of churches, because so many people have so many opinions that they think is fact and they treat as fact.
And we've deviated from this chain of authority that we're talking about.
Exactly. And so they want to, and it's such human nature to say, I'm not going to listen to you, another human. You're no better than me. I have my thoughts. You have your thoughts. We're just going to go our separate ways. That's not the way eldership is laid out.
Right.
The way that eldership is laid out is we have the blueprint. They're the ones that are making sure that we're following it.
Right. And that's a big deal because we're talking about an eldership, right? It's not one elder per congregation calling the shots. It's a group of men who meet certain qualifications that, as a group, are guiding the congregation and shepherding the congregation.
And they're pretty rigorous qualifications.
Yes. We'll get to those in a minute. But there's a lot of wisdom, and obviously there's a lot of wisdom in this because it's God and He does everything perfectly. But there's a lot of wisdom in making it a group and not one person. For one thing, it's not just one dictator saying, here's how it works. For another thing, you benefit from having multiple perspectives. So like the three elders that we have at Westside.
Three very different people.
Three very different people with three very different backgrounds and perspectives and different personalities that lend to different situations in different ways. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. There's also the danger of, like, what you're saying. Like, I think this, you think this, we can't come together on it. That's not an eldership. It shouldn't be an eldership.
Right.
You can disagree. Yes, you're going to disagree. You're different people with different perspectives and stuff. But in terms of the things, like the decisions that the eldership makes for the benefit of the congregation, whether the individual elder gets his way in every decision or not, who's to say? But in terms of the decision that they make as an eldership, the eldership is a united front. Yep. And I think that's crucial.
Because when it's not, it's no longer an eldership.
Right.
It's like you said, it's a dictator. It's one person calling the shots.
Or we've deviated from, like, the chain of authority. Because the chain of authority is not like this elder does what he wants over here with this part of the congregation, and this elder does what he wants over here with this part. It's an eldership as a group, guiding a congregation as a group. And
there's no head elder. There's no sub-tier elder.
It's the eldership.
Correct.
Yep.
Kind of like, and we'll talk about this later, but like with the deaconship, with the deacons, there's no one deacon better than another.
They're the same.
Right.
It's the same office.
It's across the board, working together
within the parameters of Scripture.
Correct.
Yep. So let's talk about what an elder is. And the way that I'm going to attempt to do this is to talk about the three words/concepts that the New Testament uses to talk about the office of the eldership. So the first one is just the word that is usually translated elder. And the word in Greek that is translated elder literally just means somebody who is advanced in age, like somebody who's been around for a while. But usually when it's used both in the context of like the elder as an office and sometimes when it's just used as like an adjective describing a person, it's usually used with the context or the connotation of wisdom and experience. Like, this is somebody who has seen some stuff and has had some experiences that not everybody has, and on the basis of that wisdom and experience and learned, lived knowledge, can offer perspective and guidance on some things.
And the reason that I love this is because I think immediately when you think of someone who is wise, someone who has the experience, you want them as somebody that is teaching.
Right.
And the reason that it is so imperative for an elder in the church is because the Bible is never going to change. The world around us is going to change constantly, right? And it's hard for me. So say like you're in college and you have a professor that is, again, very seasoned, knows what he's doing, he's been through it.
Mm-hmm.
And say they teach for an additional 20 years. I bet when they were first a teacher, right, they knew what was going on in the world. They knew what was happening. But then 20 years removed from it, they're probably still teaching the same stuff they did when they first started.
Yeah. The
world has changed. That stuff's not going to be applicable anymore.
Right.
The Bible's never going to change. As a teacher of the Bible, the more experience that you have under your belt, the better it's going to be as time progresses.
Yeah.
Because that book's not changing.
And at the same time, I think that's another point to there's wisdom in it being a group of men instead of just one, because the Bible doesn't change. The culture around the Bible changes, which means in some ways the way that you share the gospel changes. Mm-hmm. Not the gospel itself, but the way that you actually get the message out there changes. And when you have a group of men as an eldership, usually what that means is, like, to take Westside as an example, we have 3 elders. One has been an elder for like going on 20 years. One's been an elder for 5 or 6, and one was appointed last year. And so you've got like men who are seasoned in the word and seasoned in like education about the Bible, but who were appointed at different times in different moments within culture, and they can sort of represent like the different ages of the congregation and different moments in culture that you may be talking to when you're talking about the congregation as a whole.
Not to mention 2 of the 3 elders got to work with elders before them who had stepped down that are still members of the congregation that they can still go to for advice. Because to me, I think that's completely invaluable.
Yeah, that's also huge.
Like having 2 guys that were elders
who are still here
and have stepped down because of, certain circumstances, but they still have that knowledge. Mm-hmm. They still have that experience. They still have that wisdom, because those 2 guys that I'm talking about are 2 of the wisest men that I know.
Yep, for sure.
Excuse me.
So, second word. First you've got elder, like the wisdom and experience that comes with it. The second word is usually translated either shepherd or pastor. So fun fact, the word pastor is not used in the Bible to talk about the preacher, like guy who gets up and speaks to everybody. The word pastor applies to elder. And usually when it's not referring to the office, it's referring to literally a shepherd who watched sheep.
Yeah.
Like out in the field, had a flock of sheep that followed him around. And when it's used about the office of the eldership, the sense that is being portrayed is this is somebody who is caring and compassionate and has a relationship with the sheep and is dedicated to providing for the sheep.
An important thing to note about it is that with a shepherd with his flock, one, he's guiding them. Mm-hmm. He's pointing them into a certain direction. And that, to me, that is very important, because there have been very, very good shepherds, and very bad shepherds.
Yep.
There could be shepherds that lead his flock off of a cliff.
Right.
And there are shepherds that lead them into a very long and happy, fulfilled life.
Right. So to use a couple instances of this Greek word, number one, this is the word that Jesus says when he says, I am the good shepherd. So I am the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. I am the one that the sheep follow. I am the one that the sheep know. I am the one that the sheep are protected by. That's the concept. And then in 1 Peter, at the end of 1 Peter 2, he says, you've returned now to the shepherd and overseer of your souls, same word. And then in 1 Peter 5, so same letter but a little bit later, Peter talks to elderships, and he says, as a fellow elder. So at some point in his life, the Apostle Peter became an elder in the church. And he says, shepherd the flock of God, using the same word again. So your role as a shepherd, as an elder, you are somebody who knows the sheep, somebody that the sheep trust, the sheep being the members, of course. Somebody that they trust, somebody that they feel protected by spiritually, and, to your point, your role as the shepherd reflects Christ's role as the good shepherd.
And another thing to note, and you brought up the members, and I like that, because a shepherd, when he speaks to his flock, the flock knows his voice, and they're going to listen to that voice because they're familiar with that voice, and they trust that voice. But when another voice comes out, they don't listen to it, they ignore it.
They know the difference.
Right. And so the way that I put this into my mind is that we are to listen to the elders, we are to follow their example, and we're to follow their guidance. But when somebody else, even within that same church, starts speaking up, and I will even say out of turn, the smart sheep, the ones that are dedicated to the church, to the shepherds, aren't going to listen to that outside voice.
Yeah.
Even if it's within the church, even if it's or if it's outside of it.
Now I'm going to offer a caveat here.
Go for it.
Because to go back to the point we made earlier, elderships should work within the confines and the constraints of the New Testament, right? It is also the case that elders are not perfect because they're men. They're wise and they have a lot of experience and they have a lot of compassion, but they're still men who are imperfect. And there have been cases that I know of where an eldership has made a decision that goes against the New Testament in some way. Either they're overstepping their authority or they're doing something that is not for the benefit of the congregation in a way that the New Testament talks about. And in those moments, sometimes it's...
Well, that's also why it's important to have multiple elders.
Well, right, because a lot of those are weeded out.
Yeah, and don't understand me. Don't misunderstand me. When I say that we are to listen to that shepherd...
Over the Bible.
Yeah,
that's not it.
It's not a blind following.
Right.
We're not to listen to the elders blindly. It is still our responsibility as members and as Christians to know what the Bible says and to know if one of those elders, one of those shepherds, says something out of turn.
Right. The Bible is always going to trump whatever else is said.
Absolutely.
However, to your point, if the elders have made a decision within the confines of the New Testament,
that's when we follow.
That's when we follow.
That's when we listen.
Right.
And we're instructed to do as Christians and as members of the church to listen.
Right.
And to follow their guidance.
And sometimes elderships are going to make decisions within the confines of the New Testament that are legit, that are like under their purview. And I, as a member, am not going to get my way.
Yeah.
It's not going to be because their job is not to benefit me specifically. Their job is to benefit the flock.
And in all reality, like you said, they're human beings. Right. They're men.
Right.
Right?
They're doing the best that they can with what they've got.
It's not like as soon as they were appointed in the eldership, they became perfect. That's not what happens.
Nor did they become capable of meeting everyone's needs perfectly all the time.
Well, and sometimes they might not even make the best decision. They're making the decision, again, like we said, in the confines of what Scripture says. They might not make the best decision, but they're making the decision that they think is best for their congregation.
They're doing the best with what they've got.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the points I'm going to make is if the eldership has made a decision that you are not happy with as a member, and I'm talking like something that does not go against the New Testament, just something that you did not appreciate. Here's my first question, and I'm saying this not as an elder, just as a minister who sometimes gets some of this from a different perspective. But if the elders have made a legit decision within their authority that you do not agree with, did you talk to them about it?
Right.
Because if not,
they're going to think everything's okay.
Right. If you didn't say, here's the problem that I have with that, or here's the concern that I have about that, they're never going to know that there was a problem or a concern.
Yeah, they're never going to know that something's wrong unless you let them know that something's wrong.
Right.
And it's almost like, so imagine, obviously, football coach here, like, I kind of see this as a coach kind of thing. They have a playbook. That playbook's going to work, but we don't always make the right call.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, this happened in our game this past week, right? I was actually very confident that the defense that I had drawn up was going to work. And I sent a stunt the wrong way. Was a stunt the right call? Yeah. But I sent it to the left, and the play went right.
Yeah.
And they got a good chunk of yards off of it. But guess what? That doesn't mean that I'm not doing my best. That doesn't mean that I'm not qualified to be in the position that I'm in. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to keep trying to do what's best for my team.
And one of the things that I will always say, again, as a minister who sometimes sees more of this than the average member, is the job of an elder is so hard. It, like, genuinely, because, like, at Westside,
24/7.
It's 24/7, and at Westside, you've got, what, 125 opinions?
Yeah.
That you have to do something with for the benefit of
and
everybody
there's no
involved.
shot that you're going to ever make a decision that pleases every single person.
Right.
If they do, yo.
So I would say part of the responsibility of being an elder or an eldership is the responsibility to listen to and invite opinions.
Yeah.
Part of the responsibility...
It helps them make an informed decision.
Right. Part of the responsibility of a member or a family who has put their membership under the eldership of a congregation is to share those opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, if there's not two-way communication happening, there's not going to be improvement when problems come. A lot of the potential dangers of a flock of sheep are prevented by shepherds and sheep being actually familiar with each other.
If a mom makes a meal for her family that's very nutritious, but only one person actually thinks it tastes well, thinks that it has a good flavor, but nobody says anything about it, mom's going to keep making that food.
Yep. Sort of the same principle.
It's kind of a weird way to think about it, but that's what popped in my head.
No, but that's true.
If no one says anything, those similar types of decisions are going to keep being made.
And it's also like...
And it's always your responsibility to say, hey, Mom, I think your food is garbage.
Right. And it's
Maybe
also
not like that, but you know what I mean.
The expectation also is not, I voiced my opinion, now I'm going to automatically get my way about everything.
No, because guess what? That meal is still nutritious.
Right.
You know? The things that they're doing for us, the things that the elders are still doing for us, again, like we said, as long as they're following the parameters that they have, they are doing what is best for us.
Or doing their best to.
Or they're at least trying everything they can to get the best results for their congregation.
Right. Okay, so third word out of three. And this kind of, like, we've talked about this a little bit already. But so number one is elder, which comes with, like, wisdom and experience. Number two is shepherd or pastor, so, like, the caring and the
leading and
the relationship and the leading. Number three is a word that is translated either overseer or bishop, which, again, sometimes the word bishop is used incorrectly to mean, like, a specific higher office. In the Bible, it's the same thing as elder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all three of the bishop and pastor and overseer and shepherd and elder.
It's based off of the verbiage in which it's applied.
Right. So all of those mean the same thing when
right.
you're talking about an office in the church. And this word literally means, like, in modern verbiage, it would be used to talk about, like, a foreman at a factory, like somebody who is supervising and overseeing what's going on. Like, is everything happening as it should from my elevated vantage point?
They've given the instruction on how things are to operate, and then they're the ones...
And now we're making sure that it happens
correct.
that way.
Yeah.
That's the third word.
And that one might be my favorite, just because they know how things are supposed to go. They've told us how things are supposed to go, And now they're making sure that things are going the way they're supposed to go.
Right.
You know? To me, that's just the definition of, well, like we said, overseer. But then when something goes wrong, or say, excuse me, or say that they've told us how things are supposed to go, but then one or two people start messing up or doing it their own way.
Yeah.
It is that job as that leader, as that overseer, to go in, not just tell them what's wrong, but to show them how to do it correctly.
Yes.
To me, that encapsulates a leader and an elder all together.
Yes.
Because they are to one, tell us, and then two, lead by example.
Yes.
And that is an overseer.
Yep. I like it. And again, that sort of comes with is there open communication between the eldership and the membership?
Yeah.
Like, is that an awkward conversation? Or is that a conversation that you not necessarily expect, but like is normal?
Yeah. Is it one of those things where if it's like a super duper formal meeting where you're very intimidated to bring it up, and like that's not okay.
And also, so if you're like foreman at a factory, right? You're not the owner of that factory.
Right.
You're not in charge of it. But you do have an elevated position and you do have an elevated job. So, and this is sort of a spin on the Watchman concept from Ezekiel 3 and Ezekiel 33. But like, so worker A, right, messes up part of the process of building whatever it is that we're building. Overseer B goes and fixes it, like addresses the problem, and like this is what needs to be fixed, and shows him, and like the process is smoothed out. Who messed up? Who is to blame for what is wrong?
The overseer.
No, like they go and fix it. In the case where they actually go and fix it, and the problem
problem persists.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the people.
Yeah, the worker who made the initial mistake is the one to blame for the initial mistake.
They're the ones held responsible.
However, worker A messes up part of the process. Overseer either doesn't catch it or sees it and doesn't do anything about it. It's going to be fine. Now who is in hot water?
Then it's the overseer, because
things come out
something
wrong.
Could have been fixed and they chose not to fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's also part of the responsibility of the eldership.
Well, and that's also the beauty of it being an eldership, that there's multiple people.
Again,
because
right.
One person couldn't, the other one does. Either way, it is their responsibility to make sure that the problem is resolved.
Right.
And so, but also, let's go a little bit deeper. Like you said, the overseer isn't the boss.
Right.
They're again elevated higher. They're the ones with responsibility.
In the metaphor, Christ is the boss.
So, the day of let's keep it at a managerial perspective. Like the end of the quarter comes, the end of the fiscal year, whatever.
And you're doing evaluations.
You're doing evaluations. Judgment Day.
Right.
And they see, the boss, Christ, sees that the overseer ignored the problems that were going on, or just chose not to acknowledge or even attempt to fix, or blatantly told their workers the wrong thing.
Who's going to answer for that?
The overseer.
Both member
both
and
well, yes,
elder.
yes.
Yeah, but
who is going to answer more severely?
The overseer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so Hebrews 13:17
Yep.
says he's talking to members of a church, and he says, "Submit to those who rule over you as those who will have to give an account for you."
Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, they're also guaranteed, if done correctly, an elevated spot in heaven.
Yes, the reward is, like it says,
It's greater.
there's a double reward for elders who serve well.
Right. And so, flip to that, there's also a worse punishment.
Right. Right.
And so, like we said, that spot as an elder
So it's a hard job. Part of the responsibility is awareness, because again, using the metaphor, one of the ways that problems persist is they're just not caught.
Right.
And that's one of the benefits of having multiple perspectives, but awareness, and then what are we going to do about it? Because it's one thing to miss a problem. It's another thing to
ignore it.
See a problem and do nothing about it.
Yeah.
And all that's going to happen is it's going to get worse. Like there is no
It'll be the
sweeping
snowball
things
effect.
under the rug.
Right. It's just going to be a snowball effect. And that day will come, whether on this earth or not, where they're going to get that answer.
Right. And so, like, I don't envy elders who have to deal with those problems and figure out a way to address them in the way that...
I'll be real with you, I don't envy elders at all.
At all, yeah. But I have a lot of respect for them when they see a problem and the problem is dealt with. Is it going to be dealt with perfectly? Probably not. Maybe not. But I'd rather it be dealt with.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 words. And then the last point is, what does it take to be an elder? What are the qualifications for becoming an elder? So number 1, it's not like there is no specific way of appointing elders. We are told that the apostles appointed elders in every congregation, but it doesn't say anything about how they did that. So,
well, all we have is things like 1 Timothy, Titus.
Right, so that's what I'm getting to.
Excuse me?
The qualification, no, you're good. The qualifications are 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 1 through 7, and then Titus chapter 1 verses 5 through 9. Those are the 2 places where the qualifications are listed. And I love those 2 places because it's so cut and dry.
Yeah.
Like, this is the list. If he meets these qualifications, he can do it if he wants to, and if the congregation wants him to. If he doesn't, tough.
So the 2 things that point out to me the most are the first one being character over talent.
Yes.
Because the type of person you are is
much more important than your specific skill set.
Correct. And then the second is almost all the things that they hit on is you have to have an established, grounded family before you can take care of another. If you can't take care of the immediate family that you have created, how are you going to be able to do that for a church?
And that's like common sense. Like you're not going to trust your
but it's also
spouse and children's spiritual well-being as part of a congregation to people who have proven that they can't do that.
It is common sense, but it's also a qualification. That's why you have to have a family in order to be an elder.
Right.
So that you can prove, I have taken care of my family, I have shown that, I have proven that, therefore, I have the qualification to be able to lead this one.
Right. I'd also like to point out the last couple verses from the 1 Timothy section. I think it's verses 6 and 7. He must not be a recent convert, or he may become puffed up with conceit and fall into condemnation of the devil. So, don't baptize somebody and then immediately put them in the eldership.
Yeah.
Because, again, obviously. And then, moreover, he must be well thought of by outsiders so that he may not fall into disgrace, into a snare of the devil. Don't appoint somebody who's an elder who everybody outside of the church thinks is a bad person.
Yeah.
Because, again, the main priority of the church is sharing the gospel. Is appointing this person to one of the leadership positions in the church going to help you or hinder you as you try to do that?
Yeah. Outside of the eldership, outside of church, are you doing everything you can to spread the gospel?
Right.
If that answer is no, then every subsequent answer that you have after that is also no.
And that would be one of the things that I would hope a strong eldership addresses.
Yeah.
Like, if we are not evangelizing to the extent that we could, or utilizing our skill set in doing so,
what are we doing?
Why? That's a problem.
Yep.
Because that should be a priority of ours.
And I've heard somebody point out that the qualifications of an elder or even a deacon are things that we should all strive for.
Yes.
But there's a certain element to accepting that role.
Yes. It says at the beginning of 1 Timothy 3.
You have to want it.
If anyone desires the office of an elder, he desires a noble work.
Because I've known plenty of men that 1000% are qualified. But they internally do not think that they would be able to do a good job. Therefore, they don't desire the work because they think they would be a failure for it. And if they don't desire it, then, well.
And to some extent, humility is key in the eldership, because one of the things that is pointed out as a potential pitfall is you get a big head.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want an elder who is there by obligation.
And that
because
desire.
if they're there by obligation, you're never going to do a job as well that you feel like you have to, as well as one that you actually want to do.
And I think that is that split in that word desire. They don't want to be an elder to be an elder. They want to be an elder because it's...
to be a servant.
Correct. Because it's using their abilities in the best way possible to further the kingdom.
Right. That's Jesus saying, if any of you wants to be the best, he'll be a servant of everybody else.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what Jesus was.
Right.
Jesus, they wanted Jesus to be a king.
And he wasn't that.
Jesus wanted to be a servant.
Like, from a physical perspective, he was the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That basically covers it.
That works for me, man.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being on this episode with us. Luke, thank you for your insight. Thank you so much for everybody listening. We appreciate you. We love you. And we look forward to speaking with you again.
Yep.